Hello, and welcome to Shelby's Perpetual Commodore Nightmare. Oh wait, that's not a channel anyone would watch. This is Tech Tangents. And I've been trying to film a video for like 2 weeks on my pet here, and it has just fought me every possible step of the way. I couldn't get software onto it, and then I thought I could, but now I can't again, and I had the keyboard have a broken trace, and I repaired that, which will be an upcoming video soon. But now it's having Zero do just kind of whatever it wants, and I don't really know why. So that's cool. Now I gotta try and figure that out. But in the process of trying to get software on it, I ended up building something kind of cool. An XA1541 cable. Now, this is a rather interesting cable that allows you to connect a 1541 drive to a DOS or IBM compatible type computer. So what I can do is use a Commodore formatted disk in a Commodore drive and load it in DOS. That's pretty sweet. Now, I should be able to image the disk and write a disk image from this, which is just super useful to have an actual disk imaging utility for Commodore 64 drives, and maybe some other systems, which is part of what we'll take a look at here. So today we're going to look at how I set this up and how you can build a cable and use this software. Before we get too far into that though, this video was sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community where millions come together to take the next step in their creative journey. Skillshare courses are formatted as video lessons that are broken up into segments, making it easy to spend as much or little time in your day learning a new skill as you want. The available courses cover a number of different topics like web development, graphic design, and video production. I went to check out this class on CSS grids, and I ended up watching the whole thing. I hadn't heard about this yet, and the concept was very well explained with code samples for you to try out. I do a bit of web development, and now I kind of want to go update all my sites with grids because it looked really awesome in the lessons. The first 500 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get 2 free months of premium membership for you to explore your creativity. Now, I think we gotta get back to the task at hand. Yeah. Alright, before you get started making one of these cables, there are a few things that I really recommend you do first. So on the computer that you're going to be building this cable for, you want to make sure that you know what your parallel ports are. So in mine, I'm actually using one of the motherboard header ports down there, and we'll take a look at how I built my cable for that in a moment. But that means that I have a different kind of cable setup, and I needed to make sure that I knew what my settings were and what my parallel port addresses were and everything. And I tested both ports to make sure that they worked because my motherboard has, well, my system has 2 parallel ports on it. So you can just use any like text editor program like this and just do a test print. And that will tell you that your parallel port is working, and that's really going to help you with troubleshooting down the road. So just go ahead and use a printer, a zip drive, something that will help you determine that your parallel ports are working. It's a really good troubleshooting move. And one other thing before we get started, if you want to use this for a pet, like I did, then you need to make sure you have a compatible floppy drive. Now, the floppy drive I have there is not compatible, and I didn't know this until after I made the cable. So you need a 2020 or a 4040 drive, not an 8050 drive like I have here. It's like tracks per inch or something that's incompatible, but the physical layout of the information on the disk is just not compatible with a 1541 drive, so you're never going to get one of those to work. Now, the actual XA1541 adapter is really simple. You can DIY one of these without much effort at all. You just need 4 NPN switching transistors and 4 4.7 k ohm resistors. And that's it. Then you just need to figure out how you want to connect it to your computer. I originally wanted to internally mount a 1541 drive, so I made my adapter like this and soldered it directly to a drive that had one of the connectors ripped off. So this made sense to me, but you may not want to do that yourself. The 1541 drive is kind of a pain to install internally, and the drive I used didn't work anyway, so yeah, that plan went out the window. Alright, now let's get down to it. What is the XA1541 exactly? Well, really, it's just this schematic, and that's it. It's actually just one of many different cables or adapters that have been made over the years for connecting Commodore drives to PCs. but the XA1541 is easily the best option to go for if you don't want to modify your disk drive. And even though I was looking to mount this disk drive internally, I didn't really want to go through the hassle of that. I only wanted to put this in the PC because the case was really beat up, and if I directly wired the adapter to the missing DIN connector, then I wouldn't have to buy or cut up a cable for a new connector, because this just started out as a side project, and I didn't really want to put a bunch of time and money into it. Now, as a precaution, since I was aiming for an internal solution, I decided to measure all of my connections against a parallel port header cable. This also gave me the pinout of the motherboard header. Since I'd tested this with a printer beforehand, I knew that if I made my cable to match this, it would work. If you're making a D-sub cable version, you can just use the schematic as a reference point because you're not going to have that problem. I decided to make this using a double row female header side mounted to a piece of perf board. This strongly mounted the connector and gave me plenty of working space. Then it was just a matter of following the schematic and soldering everything together. At this point, I'd like to point out that all of the pages I've seen online about how to make one of these tell you to use a BSV52 NPN transistor for this. I think this goes back to one of the first versions of this adapter that was sold as a single circuit board with 2 connectors on it, because there's no real reason you need to use that particular transistor, and being SMD, it just makes life harder. Here, I'm using TO92 2N quadruple 2 NPN transistors, and really you're just looking for any small signal transistor, so you can get away with a lot of different stuff. They also specify 1/8 watt resistors. Again, this is probably from the original adapter because SMD parts come in cheaper, lower power options. I'm just using standard 1/4 watt through-hole resistors for the 4.7 k ohms here. In the end, I was pretty pleased with how the adapter came out. I don't think there were any errors on the board, but I did go back and disconnect the 26th pin that should have been left unconnected. You won't have that issue with a normal external cable. Once the board was done, I soldered it to the missing DIN connector on my 1541 drive. Then, as a precautionary step, I checked all my work to ensure everything was connected where it needed to be, which was a good thing because I actually got 2 of the wires wrong on the DIN connector. Now that everything is good to go and it looks like it should work, I put the drive on top of my 46 and it didn't work. It turns out that this drive actually is dead. I'm not quite sure why. I'll have to troubleshoot it some other time, but I just want to get this going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my 1541-2 drive that I was sent, and I'm going to daisy chain it off of this drive and disconnect power. Now, this will actually work because the 2 connectors are electrically connected, and as long as the main drive that I have it soldered to is turned off, the drive ID of 8 that it is hard jumpered to isn't going to matter. So I can just go ahead and use this as a really, really giant and heavy interface to connect any other 1541 drive. Alright, now that we have a cable and everything made up for the 1541 to work with DOS, let's go ahead and try it out. So we're going to use a program called Star Commander. Now, Star Commander is designed to look a lot like Norton Commander, so it would be familiar. Now, this generally would be called an orthogonal file viewer. You might want to get accustomed to how to use one of these. So the first thing you need to know is that you press Tab to switch sides, and that's all that it takes to do that. You can then press up and down and enter to interact with stuff, like go up a directory or move back into a directory. So navigation is fairly simple. Just keep in mind Tab to switch sides. From there, you have numbers next to words across the bottom. These numbers represent the function keys on the keyboard. This is actually kind of a callback to much older computers, but that's how you use that. So say you want to bring up 9, which is pull down, that's the menu. You press F9 and then that'll bring up the menu at the top. Now, the first time you start up Star Commander, you're going to have to configure it for how you want to access the drive you have connected. So since we just made an XA1541 cable, we're going to need to configure it for that. Now, I've already done this, of course, but the way you want to do that is go into Options from the pull-down menu you get to with F9, go into Configuration, go to Transfer Options, and then we can go ahead and configure this. Now, the XA1541 cable may seem like it would be under parallel, but the parallel cable options are not what you want. It actually considers it to be a serial cable. So you need to go under serial cable and find it there, and then it's option number 4. The only other thing you really need to worry about in here is the drive type if you're using a 1541 drive. I mean, this is a 1541-2, and this still works as a 1541, so you don't need to worry about that. But you need to choose your parallel port. So you have the serial and parallel interfaces, and again, serial is still parallel, so don't worry about that. I have two because I have a second parallel port for my printer, so I actually have a different card in there just to get me that second port. So I have them configured where the motherboard is actually LPT2 and the add-on card is LPT1, so that way the printer is always LPT1. Because some software may not be as compatible with that. I haven't run into anything like that, but just in case. So anyway, I have LPT2 as the drive. And then with that, that's pretty much all I had to configure. Unless you've done something totally different, then that should be fine. Okay, once you've done that, then you're ready to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and put a Commodore disk in. Let's start off with the 1541 demo disk here, and I will put that in the drive. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Alt F2 and then choose drive 8. So you have A through J, and I think that's all of the actual drives I have because I have 2 floppies and then 4 partitions on my SD card hard drive and then my CD changer in there. So I actually have 4 CD drives as well. But then we have 8, 9, 0, and 1, and those represent the drive IDs for the Commodore drives. So once you have it all set up and connected, you just use the drive IDs of those drives to access them. So 8 would be the first drive, and it will eventually, there we go, load all of the files that are on that disk. So it helps to know how the files are contained on a disk, and once you know more about that, this will make a little bit more sense. But something I can do here is I've already gone ahead and made a disk image file, and I'll cover that in a moment. But I can go over to this disk and then just copy a file. So like, let's say I want to copy how to use, I can just copy this file off of here and into my disk image, and it will do that. Bam, pretty easy. So it's super easy to work with files for Commodore stuff using a cable like the XA1541. So I highly recommend making something like this, because seriously, this is like easier than any of the other vintage computer solutions I've used. So at least for interfacing with them. So okay, now let's talk about how to work with disk images. So I've actually already made a disk image of this file, or this disk. Actually, you know what? Let's leave this in here. Something I wanted to try. Can I just copy a PRG file straight out of here? Let's see. That one looks small. Copy. Yeah, it's just going to let me copy it straight out of the disk and as a DOS file. Sweet. Okay, there's another way you can use it. So, all right, let's work with disk images here. So like I said, I've already imaged this disk, and that's not really a terribly important disk anyway. So let's try something else. And this box here is actually the box for Platoon. And this is a game. This game is brutally difficult. I had this running at LTX, and I think my Commodore 64 died maybe a little bit at LTX because this drive stopped working then, but it's working fine now. So yeah, I think my C64C is being a bit persnickety again. Now I'm going to admit I don't know how to refresh a drive here, so I'm just going to re-access the drive again like that, and there we go. So let's go ahead and make a disk image. Even though Platoon's only one program file on there, let's go ahead and just make a disk image. Now, one thing to note, I don't believe that this solution will work for copyrighted disks that have, like, say, bad sectors or something in them. At least I haven't tested that and verified that stuff, so that's just something to keep in mind. But let's go ahead and make a disk image. So we're going to use F9 to bring up the menu. We're going to go over to Options, and now we're going to, no, not Options, Commands, and then we're going to do Copy Disk. So from here, we will want to give the disk image a name. So let's say Platoon. And then this is already pretty much ready to go for the disk that we have. So I don't really need to change anything here. So I can go ahead and do copy, and now it will go. So before it asked me what kind of disc I had, and I had to answer a 35 track disc, and you can actually see 35 tracks up there because that's how many tracks there are on a 1541 formatted disc. So that's something else to keep in mind. That was a pretty simple question though. It also told me what the it also told me what the drive types were when it was doing that, so it was really easy. Now, this actually takes a while, so we'll go ahead and fast forward through it. And there we go. I'm pretty sure that took about 6 or 7 minutes, so this is not a fast process by any stretch of the imagination, but it's very easy to do, so that's something to keep in mind. And I actually have a few games that I want to back up, and I will be going through and doing them all this way. But now that I have a disk image file, what can I do with it? Well, I should be able to upload this to my server, download it onto a modern desktop, and run it in an emulator, and I am going to try that. I'm not going to drag out a real 64 because I don't think it works, so I'll try that before the end of this video, but I should also be able to make a duplicate of the disk. So let's try that out. Let me go find a blank floppy. Okay, apparently all of my floppy disks are in hiding, so we're going to unseal this box, which comes with a free 11th color disk. So, yeah, we're doing that. They don't let you save that sticker. Okay, ooh, blue. That's nice. We're not going to use that one, though. Okay, let's, thanks, box. Okay. The disks are all splattered over there. All right, whatever. Let's go and write a disk image. So, Platoon seems like the logical choice here. So let's do this. Now, just for reference, I should be able to format a disk or anything else like that. I know there was something somewhere. Just write. I know you can. I don't remember exactly where it was. But, you know, just go ahead and look around in the options for that. But for now, I'm going to do this. I'm going to tab over. I'm going to go to Platoon. I'm going to do F9 again. There's probably a different way to get to the commands thing directly. And I'm going to copy disk again. And this time I'm going to copy to drive 8. And because it's just to the drive that I want to copy to, I shouldn't have to do anything else. So that should be it. And now we are writing the disk image. And my drive isn't happy. Okay. So this was actually the problem I was having with it at LTX. It was knocking the head. I don't know if you heard that. So that's cool. Skip. Okay, will it read the disk that it just read? Perfectly happy with that. This is how everything goes with Commodore stuff and me. Well, anyway, you could write a disk image that way. All right, let's go ahead and test the disk image file we made. And just for the record, I'm using Windows because I needed to use it for my VGA capture card. So yeah, if you are one of those people who's interested in which desktop environments I use on Linux, that's why. Okay, let's start off by running Vice's Commodore 64 emulator, because we're going to need that. So I've gone ahead and copied over the images that I created, and we can try and load them. So first off, the what you call it, test disk, the demo disk. We can load this, and it will run the first thing here. I don't know how to reset, so I'm just going to spacebar through this, and there we go. Now we are free and clear. So what we can do is we can do a what is it, load $, no, load. I'm so used to doing this on the Commodore stuff. Do that, and then list, and list, and we should be able to see the contents of the disk, and that is exactly the same as what it was on DOS. So we know that that disk image is good, so that's pretty sweet. That means that we successfully created a disk image and then ran it in the emulator. Now, unfortunately, Platoon doesn't work. I'm guessing it does, in fact, have copy protection, because it just crashes. Yeah. So, you're not going to have a 100% success rate, and that's just what's going to happen. So, But hey, you know, at least it's possible. I'm curious about this one program that I extracted. Oh, I don't know if it does that, or maybe you can't even run that. Let's see, did I extract the platoon executable? No, I did not. So, anyway, I'd say that's pretty sweet still to be able to create your own disk image backups and to just be able to run them like that. That's really handy. I'm definitely going to do those other disks like I mentioned. All right, that's pretty much it. Using the XA1541 cable to use a real 1541 drive on a DOS PC is surprisingly easy. I love that that works. This is going to be so nice going forward for just using Commodore stuff, because I now have one solid frame of reference for troubleshooting at least the drives. I've got 3 drives that all have some kind of problem, and now I have a hope of being able to fix them without having to worry about possibly dead CIA chips or other myriad of issues that it seems like all the Commodore 64s have. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. That cable is pretty much guaranteeing that I can start to work on Commodore stuff now. So I'm looking forward to that. There's even more things you can do with that as well. I know there's CBM for Linux, I think, and then I believe IBM Link or CBM Link. I'm not sure which one it is, but there are more programs that can take advantage of that cable. It's not just Star Commander. I'll link to some stuff down below that'll let you get an idea of what you can do with one of these, and also link to some written directions and images on how you can assemble one of these cables. I'm really happy that I went through the effort of making that cable and troubleshooting and trying to get it working, because I really like making this 486 computer able to do as many different vintage computer interfacing tasks as possible, and this is a pretty significant one to be able to do. I actually have this almost totally ironed out for making Tandy System 80 disks, and I will be doing a big video on that at some point, because I can make everything from Model 1 boot disks up to Model 4 high-density disks, and that's pretty sweet. So we'll be taking a look at that later. Oh, not high-density, double-sided, I think. We'll be taking a look at that later, but this is another significant step, so I'm really happy about that. And I think that's pretty much it. If you want to support the channel, I am on Patreon, but for now, I hope that was helpful. I'll see you next time. Helps when you plug it in.